The Tesstudio C9 screen for your Cybertruck. Today's video will be all about the C9 screen for your Cybertruck. I am going to do a walkthrough and a review and an install, but before I get to all that, what is it, what's it do, and why is it something that you'd want to add? It's basically a small screen that's going to sit on your dash right in front of your steering wheel. While it does have several cool features, a lot of them are redundant. The one thing it has that your Tesla does not is it has the ability to add CarPlay and Android Auto. I'm a longtime Samsung user. That's just the route I go. It's what my whole family goes. It's what my whole work does. All of our lives surround around the Android Samsung platform. So not having that as an adaptability feature in my life, in my vehicle, really holds me back. I use my GPS every single day on my route to work. I live in a place in Denver, Colorado where there's multiple different routes I can take. Traffic can be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes. So despite the fact I have premium connectivity with updated maps and traffic patterns on my Tesla, it is not as accurate as GPS on my Google Android Auto. In fact, it's not even close. I find myself using my own personal phone as my GPS every day to work. So then it's a matter of linking the Bluetooth, putting it in, holding the screen, where do I put it? Sometimes I need my phone for other things. Sometimes my battery's low and I can't charge it and get the maps. This eliminates all that. Now you have a screen that essentially is your phone.
At first glance, this installation process is going to seem daunting. There is a lot into it. Worst case scenario, if you have no experience, I'm going to say 2 hours. If you follow my little video step by step, I think you can knock this out in under an hour. And if you've had experience like me and you've really taken your truck apart quite a bit, it's possible you could knock this whole job out in about 20 minutes. Like everything I've gotten from Tesstudio, as you're going to see here, came very well packaged. Shipping was really quick.
As always, you can use my channel name, CARisma, as the promo code when you go to purchase this on the Tesstudio website. Now, I encourage you to use my discount code. There's others out there you can use, but if you use mine, not only will you get the maximum discount you can get, which this week only will be a 35% discount. Now, if you get it after Christmas 2024, this is going to drop down to a 20% off discount code. They give me a small percentage of that back. Anything I make from these videos, I just buy more features that I put right back into the truck. I'm going to do a comparison video with another review mirror shortly here in the next couple weeks. Things like that. Use my discount code CARisma. I now have a very long-term relationship with Tesstudio. I've gotten this bed divider here. I've gotten these little Molle panels that you see in the corners of my truck. One of the benefits I have of Tesstudio is anytime I reach out, they always get right back to me. Today's video is all about the C9 screen, and if you want links to any of these, I'll put them down in my description below as well. So I do want to address one last thing before I get into this, which is the big question I think everyone has. It's the question that I had. I wondered if I'd still be able to see this screen with my current Cybertruck wheel. I do plan on eventually, when they come out with it, putting the Yoke steering wheel in my Cybertruck, but I don't have it right as of now. Let me show you exactly what this looks like from my perspective. You see what I see from my line of vision. So I am 5'9". I'm sitting with my seat at a normal height, maybe a little lower than the average person. You can see the steering wheel bar cuts off just the bottom lip of that screen. And while the steering wheel is all the way down, I probably could sit my seat just a little bit higher, but the visual is still fine. If anything else, probably gives me a good excuse to buy the Yoke steering wheel. So without further ado, here we go. Let's walk through the install. So the first thing you're going to need to do is pull off this entire white dash all the way across the top. But before you can pull this little trim off that on my truck is white, there's a little black end cap here that has to come off first. I have 4 different clips on this. 2 of them are going to be going into the truck like this, and then 2 more of them will be going back into the truck like this here. So if you listen, you'll hear the first clip come out and then the second. And then I just pulled a piece of plastic out by hand, and the last 2 little clips come out, and then it swings out from the little rubber trim. That piece connects to another one going all the way to the floorboard. Now the same thing on the passenger side. Again, remembering, up here by the top corner is where you're gonna have the best luck popping this out. And then same thing down in the bottom corner. Pull that corner piece out and open it up further. So then once you have these 2 end pieces out, you're just going to pull off this entire white piece of vinyl all the way across the top. I found the best way to do is kind of be lifting up all the time in addition to kind of pulling out. Both of these clips kind of came out in 2 pulls. So I kind of worked my way through pulling them out and then started back over and pulled again. And this was able to pull them completely out. It wasn't until a 3rd pass where I fully pulled all the clips out to give myself some wiggle room. And then I went over to the driver's side and did the same thing there, just pulling up those little bottom clips. And once I finished that, I moved to try to get the top set of clips out by pulling these up and out away from the truck. Then I'll complete the same process here on the other side. I've got my bottom lip loose. Now I'm going to pull this whole side up towards the center of the car. And I did have to use a little bit of force to pull this out, especially the final clips on the top. And don't forget to slide both these seats all the way back. My floor mat's removed, my seat all the way back. I pull this trim out a little bit more.
One rivet we have to remove. It's gonna look like this. And if you're not familiar with these are really common in cars. In fact, you pulled out a bunch of these when I put in my mud flaps. This side here is gonna be larger. You're gonna pull out this inner part first. And as you do that, it's gonna make this part here smaller. So you're pulling out this little front part first, then you're gonna get this lip behind here and pull this entire rivet out. You can use the little orange trim tool that Tesstudio provided. It does work. I prefer to use like a little rivet tool.
Although it's kind of dark down the floorboard of the truck, I'm not able to get the best camera angle, but it just pops right out in a matter of a couple seconds. After that, I just pull back all the little carpet of the floor shield, and there's a little piece of plastic kind of protecting these little wire harnesses. The directions say to grab the blue harness. Make sure not to grab the light blue one, but rather the darker blue one. Press the little tab in the front and pull it right out.
You're gonna come with really 3 different sets of wires. These 2 smaller ones. You also came with this really long one. This is the one we're gonna be using first. So it is labeled here, passenger seat. This is gonna basically be a splitter. So the little blue plug you just pulled apart, this is gonna go into it, and this is gonna go back into what you just unplugged so power can still pass through. In addition, it's gonna tee off through this that you're gonna use now this wire to run up over that little dash that you just pulled out to give you power to your C9 screen on the driver's side. So the white harness that says passenger seat on it is actually gonna go into the dangling blue cable that you just pulled out. It's gonna be easier to fasten the one that says passenger seat first, the dangling wire, because as you can see here, you're gonna have to kind of tuck it back behind a lip, and it's gonna be easier for them to put this wire up into the harness that's still attached to the truck.
You're gonna take the white harness labeled passenger seat and plug that into the loose flowing wire, and then go ahead and tuck all of that back behind that lip before pushing the remaining white end back up into the module of the vehicle itself until it clicks.
I'm gonna fish this wire back up through this little cover here, back up in the dash, where then I'm gonna run it all the way across to the other side.
There's not a right or wrong way to do this. However, you can just get it through. There's plenty of void space. Get it all the way up to the top of the dash. And then snap that corner panel back in place and put the rubber trim back over. Once up to the corner, I ran that wire all the way across the very top lip of this dash. Now I could have ran it through the middle here, but I wanted to avoid trying to pinch it on any of these clips. So I ran it across the top down to the other side quarter panel.
The directions have me putting this right back on as soon as I route this wire across. I personally just like to kind of see how everything works. I'm gonna get everything all set. Then once I feel good about it all, know that I can reach and my cords are long enough. This wire, you're gonna plug into the OBD sensor. You'll notice by the other end, it's gonna look exactly like that. You're gonna use the OBD sensor, but then this side you're not gonna use. It's gonna leave this open in case you still need to plug something in here like a troubleshooting guide. This part of the OBD just remains open. It's gonna tee off with this smaller wire here, and that's gonna run back to where your connections are.
And then take the white harness marked OBD and push it into the black OBD sensor on the floorboard. You're not going to use the other end of this white harness, so I kind of just tuck this back behind the control board. You are going to use that little smaller wire though, because that's going to have to go into this little control board that you have 3 of. So before I get to plugging it into the little mini control box, I want to show you that next to this sensor, there's a little void in the dash of the truck. The unused harness can fit right in there and it'll stay. That way it'll be available if you need to plug in multiple things in the future.
Came with these 3 different control boxes. One of them is going to be clearly labeled with an L for the left. One's going to clearly be labeled with the R for the right. One that's just labeled H is the one you're going to be connecting into that little tee off of the OBD sensor.
All 3 boxes are identical, so make sure you're using the right one. Back inside the truck, you're going to find a cluster of 3 wires in between the screen and where that OBD sensor. You're going to locate the one with the small white harness and plug that into the control box marked with the H. Push it in until you hear the click.
So now I'm going to go ahead and hook up the screen itself. And you could have done this earlier in the process. I chose to wait. It really doesn't matter. You're going to have like a little black wire. That's going to go to the black wire that kind of tees off of this little control box. These kind of just click together like so.
Then you went ahead and shoved that control board, connected all those wires back down into that corner panel.
So now that I'm pretty confident I have everything put together and wired in right, everything can reach, I don't have any excess in places I shouldn't, everything seems to work. Now I'm gonna go ahead and finally put everything back together.
Putting it back together is the easy part. Just line it up, and I'm gonna let you sneak peek around the edge of this just to see where you have to push the little clips back into the place they came out of. Once you get it secure into place, you just go ahead and push it on until everything clicks. I just made sure as I was pushing in this top that wire was still tucked back behind. Once the panel is back into position, I used the side of my fist to firmly set them into their seat.
So now before I go ahead and snap in my driver's side panel, now is where I'm gonna make sure I put my actual screen on and make sure my cords are all fished back into place.
The screen actually clips onto that trim very easily. Once that's into place, make sure you tuck all your wire back in behind that little vinyl trim down into the corner before you start clicking that back into place. My trim tool to make sure that little rubber weather stripping is tucked back over the corner of the plastic trim everywhere. Then I pop that black cap back to the end. I did the same thing on the other side, pushing it behind the rubber trim first, then clicking both sets of clips back into place.
We're probably about 90% of the way done. The last two things we have to do is we have to install, using these harnesses, one of these little black control boxes inside of each door panel. At first glance, it sounds daunting and it seems like it's a big task, but it's really not. I've had mine apart a couple different times now. You might have seen some other videos. You are gonna wanna make sure you get these boxes right. They are pretty clearly labeled L for L. This one here is an R to be on the right side of the door. Directions as if you're driving the car. So the R right side will be the passenger door that I have behind me here, and the left is gonna be the driver door. These little harnesses are the same difference, so you can't really mess those up. We're gonna eventually have to take out a couple screws with this little included Allen wrench. To start off with, we're just gonna use that included trim tool and just pop this out. So I've had these door panels apart several times now. I do think it would have helped me if I would have been able to see the inside of one of these before I started. On the small side of the door, you're gonna have these two little brackets here, and then there's gonna be another one right up here. These two brackets, as you can see, something's gonna get stuck, one of these pegs is gonna become behind here, which means they have to slide down onto these, which means when you're popping these off, you're gonna wanna lift this slightly up. Again, so when you're putting these on, it's gonna be on the panel like this. After you've pulled the clips out just a little bit, it's gonna have a little bit of wiggle room designed in there where you're then gonna wanna pull this up to where you can come up out of these two little clasps here. If you don't come just that little bit up, chances are you could break two of those plastic tabs that are in there. Also, I found it's easiest to start from the inside corner, and actually I can grab it with my hands and just use the tool to kind of help me out a little bit, but I can physically pull it out. Very much how the dashboard went, I do this in passes, pulling the clips out halfway and then on the second pass the rest of the way. There you go. Now you're gonna use this little Allen wrench to pull out 3 different screws. These 3 nut heads are really easy to spot. I just pull them out one at a time. I use that little wrench just to crack them loose, and then I pull them the rest of the way out by hand. It was very simple, very easy to do. I need to take off this bottom section of the door. However, I do think it's a little bit easier to just unhook this all together. There's just 2 wires. It's pretty easy to get it out, so you might as well just do it. Just like all the other harnesses, you just pinch one little end and it pulls out. Same thing on one side as on the other. Now that I have the whole white part out of the way, now I need to pull this whole part back. Now it's not any more complicated to pull the bottom of the door off, but it is going to take a little bit more oomph. So I'm going to use the same little tool I used earlier. These 2 outside ones are going to be these little blue knobs. I'm just going to get in behind those and pop them out. I just use the fork of this rivet tool just to pop these right out, and they kind of pop out in 2 different pushes. And to be clear, you're not messing with this greenish tab, it's the darker blue ones. The prying does take force, but as you can hear there, when it pops out cleanly. I found it was easiest for me once I had 2 or 3 of those points out to actually physically grab the plastic and kind of manhandling pulling it out. There's anchor points all up the sides on both sides, but once you get it open, there's a big void in the middle, and here they are back down the other sides. So back here to the middle, you're gonna locate this little blue harness plugged into the black. That's where you're gonna have to press that same little button to depress to open it up and put in that little T-split harness. It'll only go one way, so the one end of the white plastic is gonna put into the cord you pulled out, and the other end is gonna put into the base of the truck. Then locate the control box with the R, since we're on the right side of the truck, and push that little white clip in again until it clicks. That part's really simple. From there, just stash it into a void of the door and just smash it back in with a little bit of force. After returning those 3 screws into place, I again set the clips using the side of my fist. Then the same thing on the driver's side door, beginning by removing the white vinyl piece. Same process, prying these open with the bar whenever I can until I can actually grab it and rip it off with my hands. Once you got it open, locate and unhook that little blue harness, connect it one end of the white and the other end back into the truck. Then take the small white harness and click that into the other control board. Just make sure before you snap this back into place that this little wire going to the top of your door with the little yellow piece of tape is out. Then same as before, go ahead and snap the door back on. Don't forget to put all 3 of those little nuts back into the door. One more little bit of advice about putting this door panel back on. So here I'm on the inside of my driver's side door. You can see here, this is just a little bit of a gap here, but on the inside of this, we're gonna come look at it from the top. You can see I have just a little nub here. This little nub is gonna go into this little groove here, kind of like this. So if you're trying to put this panel back on, it doesn't seem like it's fitting quite right, make sure you have that little knob going in between that little U bracket.
Now I'm going to show you how I connected it to the Bluetooth. Go to the Bluetooth setting on your phone, go ahead and hit search. You're going to be looking for the one that pops up that says CarKit 9CD4. Click pair when the option's given. And within a couple seconds, it'll link. So you can see right now on the screen is exactly what I'd be seeing on my phone with the GPS. For example, I can choose the route to the airport and I can use the Android Auto to navigate me there. Just saying my phone screen, my map on this screen is worth the price of admission, so to speak. To make adjustments to most of these functions, you do need to be in park. If you're in drive, they won't be available. It does also identify what gear you're in. So as you can see here, I'm sliding from park to drive, and you can see it shift on the screen as well. It also shows door position. As you can see both doors open. When I shut my driver's side door, it sets on the animation just like it would on my screen. It also recognizes the headlights just like your main screen would. When you turn the brights on, off and on, you can see it. And I know you can also see them on the screen. It's just going to show up right in front of you that your lights are on when they say that they're on. It's also going to recognize with little green arrows when your turn signals are off and on. It's also convenient to have the time displayed up top. Another really cool feature of this, and listen to music out of this while my car is listening to other music. My kids ride the back seat, they're watching the back screen, they're watching Netflix, YouTube, whatever you name it. But now I can't really listen to anything else. So I have Amazon Music hooked, so I'm just going to go ahead and select that there. Then I'm going to select Holiday Favorites because 'tis the season. And I'll Be Home for Christmas just popped in. And now you hear that volume. That volume is coming out of this, not out of the speaker of my actual car. You can actually see I'm actually getting messages, which again, so cool. Messages from my phone popping up on my screen while I'm hearing the music. And it's the best of both worlds in that I'm still connected to the Bluetooth on my screen. So if I get a call or a text, I can choose to answer it on the car screen or on the new Android C9 screen. Being a strict Android user, I can't fully speak to the CarPlay, but anything you could do on CarPlay, I'm sure you could do on this, because anything I've ever done on Android Auto vehicles in the past, I'm able to do on this. Another cool little bonus is every time you enter the car, you get to see this little cool animation pop up on the screen. It's actually really cool to see. It automatically adjusts to nighttime vision, and there's a bunch of different modes you can choose from, including these ones that give you mile per hour as well as horsepower. After you like this video, make sure you use the discount code CARisma for your maximum discount code.